morning everyone and welcome to Link's second ever virtual AGM. You are all very welcome. I'm delighted that so many people have decided to attend today and it gives me a huge amount of confidence that we're engaging with people in a way that really works for you. I'm sorry it can't be face to face, but I'm sure that you'll completely understand why that has to be the case this year. And hopefully you'll find these sessions really informative. And of course, if you do have questions, please don't hesitate to get in touch with us after the AGM itself, because I do appreciate it's more difficult to engage this way. I did wonder whether I should do this by video or take my chances on my internet connection at home, but I thought on balance the likelihood of me getting cut off halfway through suggested I should probably do the video. So I hope you don't mind that it is a video presentation today. First, I'd just like to do some introductions before I kick off with my section. I'm John Turner, I'm the Link Group Chief Executive, and I'm joined today by Sarah Smith, our Group Director of Communities, and Colin Culross, our Group Commercial Director, who are also going to run through some of the performance that we've seen over the years in their divisions. And hopefully that will give you a really good feeling for how the business has performed in what was an extremely unusual year this year. So what I'll start with, I think, is just an overview of how as an organisation we have decided to frame up our strategic position both for our tenants and our service users, but also now in the context of much wider discussions in terms of what is housing in Scotland, how do we fit into the economy, and how do we support communities. And as we looked at that this year, we took the opportunity to really refine the vision for Link, and I was hugely grateful to a group of board members from across the group and indeed from some of the partner RSLs who took the time to work with us as part of our sustainability group to say, right, what should the vision for a business like this look like? How do we support our communities? And they came up with these really compelling short summary statements of what we are here to do. And that's around providing sustainable communities, it's in looking after people, and it's building on the legacy that Link has had for many years in addressing inequalities wherever we find them. And hasn't that been an incredibly powerful message this year in particular with the pandemic and with the inequalities that it has exposed throughout society? So I was delighted to see that work coming up with two very, very compelling vision statements for the organisation, which I hope will resonate not only with yourselves as members, but also in our communities and indeed with the staff groups who are so important in delivering all of these promises. So we went through that process. And what I also took the opportunity to do this year was to say, right, as we have got this clear, compelling vision for Link about sustainable communities, how do we structure the business to make sure we have the same clarity and precision of operations as that vision requires? And this year we changed the business into three very distinct divisions. We've got a communities division that Sarah Smith runs, who, as I say, will be speaking to you shortly. We've got a building success division, which takes all of our commercial operations and brings them together in a really powerful commercial hub. And again, Colin Culross will be talking to you about that in a few moments. And we've also got a corporate wellbeing division. And this division is fundamental because you cannot provide first-class customer services for either our communities or indeed for our commercial business without a very, very powerful, very strong and resilient corporate centre. And so these three divisions are now deliberately structured to make sure we have an absolutely clear line of sight into what we do, who we do it for, and how we make sure those are genuinely first-class services that we can all be proud of and that our customers can really enjoy receiving. One of the big themes for us was sustainability this year. And that has become an anchor point really for the organisation, and to the point where we no longer have a business plan for the business, we have a business sustainability plan. And we took the chance as part of the sustainability work to map through all the way from the UN development goals into the Scottish Government plan for government, and then say, right, what do Link wellbeing goals look like? How do they feel? And we came up with these three strands of environment, resilient communities, and corporate well-being. And for the first time, we'll now be able to map through, all the way through from the UN development objectives down into our divisions and actually into each of our colleagues in the business in terms of the impact that the work they do every day has on the business and wider in the economy. And I think that's enormously powerful because it begins to really embed sustainability at the heart of everything we do in a very practical way, in a very important way, And if we look at some of the challenges ahead in terms of our journey to net zero, if we look at some of the challenges ahead in terms of how do you bring in high quality homes and match that with fuel poverty and food poverty objectives for our tenants and service users, you can see that it's incredibly important that we get this messaging right and we have proper anchors in the organisation to ensure that I deliver on those objectives for you as members and for the board and for the tenants that we're here to serve. So that was a piece of work that we deliberately took on this year, and I'm delighted with the shape that took, and again very grateful to both colleagues across the organisation but also staff who took their time to invest energy in undertaking that. I want to give you a very small snapshot of an example of where we are from a net zero perspective and sustainability perspective in terms of our own properties. And this can only really be an example because sustainability is such a broad topic. But if you look at our existing homes, we had a piece of work done for us by Changeworks this year that looked at how are we doing from an energy efficiency perspective in our properties. It's massively important to our tenants because it affects the amount of heat that is required in their homes and the cost of running them. And we were really encouraged to see that from our perspective at the moment, we're performing extremely highly on energy efficiency metrics. And importantly for me, we maintained the Ritterveld Sustainable Housing label that I talked to you about last year. Why that is important is because it gives the external validation of what we are doing. And this is an important principle that we are developing in Link to make sure we don't just say we are doing a good thing, but we have technical specialist third parties who challenge us and make sure that what we are saying is what they are seeing on the ground. And Ritterveld is a very important part for us of that accreditation. And as you can see in the energy efficiency ratings of the stock, we're starting at a really, really strong level. And that's reflective of significant asset investment that's gone into the homes over many, many years, maintaining homes at a very, very high level already. It gives us a high bar to get over, and as we look forward, that will become increasingly challenging as we look to develop that further. But this type of work you will see more and more often within Link now as we develop our systems and processes, as we develop the evidence base of how we as an organisation move towards a net zero carbon footprint, and in doing so support the Scottish Government goals of a net zero economy in the future. I want to just touch on some of our performance this year as well, because it will be known if not for nothing else than the year of the COVID pandemic, and I appreciate we aren't yet out the back end of that, but as we set off into April this year, we had no idea how significant this impact was going to be on our communities, our staff and colleagues. And I'm going to look at it from three perspectives. Some examples of the support we provided to people during the year. I want to look at how the core business operated as well, and I want to have a little look at how we supported our own staff and colleagues during the year. I can't possibly do justice in a presentation like this to all the work that's been going on to support tenants and customers across Scotland this year. But I've picked out a few numbers here and a few examples of the type of work that we have been doing within Link to try and look after people as far as we can. The COVID pandemic has touched everybody's lives. And if you look at some of these examples, what is striking about them is not the scale, which in itself is large, but the fact that behind each of these numbers there's a real person, there's a real family, and the impact we have and the support we have managed to provide to families throughout this period has been absolutely extraordinary. Even if you look at the number of iPads that we have circulated out into tenants and service users, I met a gentleman about a month ago who got one of the iPads, was supported in setting it up. He didn't see a single person other than somebody who delivered shopping to him on a weekly basis for 3 months and never left his house. That iPad to him was a window to the world that without it, he would have had no access to another human being. And I cannot think of anything which has more importance than being able to support people through what were really, really difficult months, especially at the beginning of the pandemic. And I'm enormously grateful to all the staff who made this happen, both in terms of finding this funding, but also getting it out to people and families who needed it most. And that for me is what matters most. Behind these numbers, it is the people, it is the families who we've been able to look after during the pandemic. And I think that's been a fantastic contribution made by the organisation to the communities that we work in. But I do completely also recognise it's only one only one small snapshot of many, many services that we've provided across the piece. The next stage for me was, could we keep the core of the business running? As we went into April and May of the year, we were really having to react on a daily basis to changing government messages. I remember sitting in this room watching the news stories as they came through at 5 o'clock every day, telling us what we could and couldn't do the very next day. These weren't long-term plans. These were plans that people had to react to instantly to make sure the core of our business could keep on going. And I think it's been absolutely outstanding how this business has managed to keep going. If you look at some of these figures here and remember that they are in the middle of a pandemic, they're quite incredible that they continued to be able to be done. The number of homes, 770 homes were let to people who needed them. A lot of those straight into the extreme homeless channels when people were needing to get off the street because it was too dangerous for them to be on the street. If you look at the number of calls we put out to our tenants because we couldn't get out and do face-to-face visits, everything suddenly online, making sure people were okay. If you look at the work that Link Living did, who were operating all the way through the pandemic in the supported living space, and if you the emergency repairs teams who ran all the way through the period out and about in people's homes at a time when we were all at risk of the illness and the virus that was circulating. These types of examples can only be delivered by really high quality supportive staff teams, and I cannot emphasize enough how grateful I am to all of my colleagues who have worked tirelessly through this year to deliver these outcomes, because this was the core of our business at the beginning of the year. This is where we focused, and we've had to add to that all of the additional support work that was needed, and we've all had to work in a completely different way to make it happen that no one would have believed possible if you went back to before the time when everything was locked down and closed out. So I am hugely grateful to the work that's been going on, and I hope that our tenants and our service users would be the same and would feel that the quality of the service they've got, whilst we had to change it, was still at a standard that they would be looking for us as their housing provider. There was also a lot of work going on internally. As you'd imagine, we had to adjust lots of systems and processes to fit. Suddenly we went from an online working environment through to very much offline, people having to work from home. As I've mentioned, we were changing our systems on a daily basis at one point. And it was really important that we looked after our colleagues who were inside the business and enabled them to do the important work from a corporate resilience perspective. And again, these are some small examples really of the work that was going on, but we've transitioned all of our offices to being entirely COVID safe. We've had to make sure that staff have had access to the appropriate PPE relevant to the type of work they do. And we've also focused significantly on the health and mental well-being of our staff, because we recognised all the way through that people were feeling the lockdown in particular in very different ways, depending on your personal circumstances. So we spent quite a lot of time looking at that, because I don't think you can get the type of outcomes from the business that you've seen on the previous figures without staff who are also supported and looked after in terms of how we work together and what we try and do as a team. There's undoubtedly been an impact from our perspective of the pandemic on this year's financial figures. I'm very pleased that they've come to the position they are in. We aren't far off where we expected to be, which is staggering really when you consider that we had no idea what we were going into. Rental income was down this year. It suffered from the lockdown in terms of the new build development schemes when the sites stopped running. But we were continuing to make good progress in terms of the financial resilience of the business, and actually we raised a lot of new money this year, which was a great example of the confidence that our external stakeholders and funders have in us as a business, that we were able to raise new money for investment in our homes and investment in new homes at a time of a pandemic when all businesses were really under pressure. A lot of that strength came from the commercial performance of the business. Significant overperformance in areas like the First Homes Fund and the PSL scheme allowed us to come through with a strong financial performance that perhaps otherwise wouldn't have been the case. And I think it is worth reflecting on that in the context of what we do have and what is being built within the organisation at the moment is a very strong social business, but also a very strong commercial business. And so we will see this in different years where different parts of the business operate strongly and others have more pressures, as we've seen this year. And what I would hope is, as we build those two sides of the business, that offset continues to work for us. Because this time the commercial business has performed extremely strongly and has given us a strong outturn. That positions us very, very well for 2021-22. It gives us a strong starting point, and we need that because there is significant catch-up work that is needed to be done in terms of repairs that we have not been allowed to do legally. And I'm pleased to say that now we're well into 2021-22, that repairs backlog is fully completed, and that was a reflection really of the strength of the financial position that we managed to deliver. And Standard & Poor's, who are a credit rating agency, really important stakeholder, we came through and we have an A-rated stable outlook, which again is a testament to not only the quality of the work that goes on from a frontline perspective, but the financial and corporate resilience and the strength of that platform that has been built gives confidence to people like Standard & Poor's when they are looking at us and saying, are we a strong, safe business for businesses to lend to and to support financially. And so the financial outturn is different to where we expected it to be, but I'm pleased that it came through and it landed us in a strong position because that sets us very well for the future. I think it's worth me touching on some of our regulatory metrics. And I suppose the truth of it is that when you look at some of these indicators, I'm really, really impressed with how we've managed to navigate this year. Most importantly for me, probably the tenant satisfaction data, well above average on almost all the indicators that the regulator tests us on. If you look at the quality of homes and the Scottish Housing Quality Standard, operating right at the top level there. And if you look at some of the other metrics which have become increasingly important to our communities this year, for example, antisocial behaviour cases, how do we resolve them? Again, really top quality performance coming through. And I think that this snapshot is very reflective of what we've been striving for as a business, which is to say we need to keep doing the core of our business in spite of the pressures of the pandemic. And I think we've done that, and I think it's fantastic to see some of these indicators coming through. In particular, I think some of them which don't naturally kind of draw the eye in terms of focus immediately, but if you look at the amount of days it takes us to let properties, and you think of how difficult it was just in terms of mobility and being allowed out of our houses, to being able to manage to continue to let properties quickly when they come up is massively important, because there are people out there on huge waiting lists who are desperate for homes, and I think our ability to keep doing that has two effects. Firstly, it continues to provide really important homes for people. Secondly, it helps to mitigate the financial losses of having homes that aren't let. And so keeping all of that in balance this year has been a juggle. It's been a juggle every single month. But great to see some of these measurements coming out that support the fact that as a group, Link are performing still really at that top level where you'd expect us to be. So when I look at the performance of the organisation over the year, I suppose my summary of it is I'm delighted to have seen how strongly the business reacted to some very, very significant external pressures. And the reason I'm particularly pleased about that is because success for the organisation is driven by high quality services for our tenants, high quality services for our service users and the likes of Link Living, and that really matters. It has a direct impact on people's lives and families, and so it is a really, really positive starting point for next year to have managed to come through such a highly pressurised environment and proven that we can withstand that and we can continue to deliver at a really top level. But it would be wrong of me to end without welcoming our new Weslow tenants and Weslow colleagues who joined the group just after the year end. And Weslow, as you're probably aware, went through a transfer of engagement process. They selected Link as the preferred partner and worked through most of the year actually developing a proposition to bring another 2,500 tenants and nearly 4,000 private owners into the group. I'm delighted they're here. I hope that they will enjoy being part of the Link family, and we will be able to see some transformation in the homes and opportunities that they have. And we'll be working very hard over the course of this year and next year to embrace those teams and bring them in and make sure that the experience of being within Link is a really positive one, as it will be for Link, because we're already learning some great things from the new colleagues that have come in, and ways that we can adapt and build our business together to make it even stronger for the future. So welcome to all of you who have joined us, and as I say, I hope you do find the experience is a really positive one over the next few years. And so before I hand over to Sarah, I just want to say thank you again to all of the staff and all of my colleagues who have made this possible. Nothing that I've talked about today is possible without the energy and the enthusiasm that people have shown. And as I have said probably repeatedly now, in a period of really difficult external environments. There was no guarantee that we would come through this year as strongly as we have, and it's been made possible by the efforts of everybody who works at Link, and I'm unbelievably proud of everybody here for being able to step up and deliver for our tenants and service users. I'd also like to just extend a thanks to our board members, because again, as a governing body, it's a very, very unusual year. How do you provide governance and oversight and scrutiny and assurance on a business that you can't even visit? And so I don't underestimate the difficulty that board members have had within Link, but also across the group, in terms of trying to ensure that they are clear on what is going on and they've got the ability to continue to drive the business forward. I think that's taken a huge effort and a huge flexibility on behalf of board members. So thank you to all of you who have provided that support to myself and to my leadership team as we've been trying to navigate through the challenging circumstances that we have seen. It's been a huge collective effort, and I think it's right to thank all of our tenants and our service users this year. You've stuck with us. Things have had to change. We've tried to do the best that we can. Have we got everything right? Probably not, but hopefully you've also seen that when things haven't been right, we do what we can to correct that and adjust our services to try and take on board feedback we get. So thank you for all of your tolerance, and I hope that we can give you some confidence that as we move forward, we'll take the learnings from this period and the organisation will continue to thrive and continue to provide high quality services to you as well. So thank you everybody, and I'll now hand over to Sarah to talk in a bit more detail about the Communities division this year.
Amongst the many issues that the COVID-19 pandemic has highlighted is the importance of home and how inequality, poverty and place impacts on how people experience their home. And home for a lot of people also means community and a sense of belonging. As a social housing provider, Link has a responsibility to not only provide housing, but also to build and maintain communities. And this responsibility has seen Link diversifying its activities over the years to include support, welfare advice, and helping people into training and employment. This year, as we know, has seen us really strengthen the integration of our care, support and employability services with our core housing services. And John has already highlighted and mentioned some of the ways that has had significant benefits for our tenants and the people in the communities in which we operate during a period of national and in fact global crisis. Our core business is the provision and management of decent, secure, affordable homes. And this last year has seen our social housing portfolio and our investment and planned maintenance programme ensure that more tenants across Scotland live in quality homes. All of our tenants have access to welfare advice expertise from our dedicated team, and we all know just how valuable that has been over the last year. Alongside this, our partner organisations across the group have come together to really maximise our impact across the communities of Scotland. Alongside the provision of homes, the partners have come together to combine their expertise to develop some really innovative services for our tenants and to seek additional funding to be able to deliver those. Over the last year, we've continued to grow the offerings we can make to people in our communities and our tenants through the Link Employability Academy. The year obviously posed some challenges, but the team were well up for that, and they worked phenomenally hard to ensure that all our accredited qualifications were moved to an online platform. And so as we move forward, what that means is more tenants across Scotland have an opportunity to engage in those qualifications virtually. And alongside just moving those courses to an online platform, we've also invested in digital champions to make sure that our tenants are digital savvy and can actually use those platforms. And finally, I'd like to just briefly mention our community investment activities and give a brief example of the success of those. Last year, we had 49 apprentices deployed across our housing developments. 15 of these were new apprentices. These numbers are only slightly down on the previous year. And so given that sites were closed for a few months, that really is an incredible achievement and a great example of how the integration of our activities across the group really do benefit people and communities. And I think that that's a perfect point to hand over to Colin.
So this is what building success looks like for Link. Link's commercial activities are themed around building, managing and maintaining homes sustainably. Link has ambitious plans to deliver more than 3,000 new affordable homes over the next 5 years. And despite the setback of the pandemic on construction activity, we delivered 447 new homes last year, and this year, with over 2,500 homes under construction, we'll deliver a further 1,261 homes. With a focus on delivering more sustainable homes, Link will develop its energy standards in new homes, achieving zero carbon heating systems in 2024 and zero net construction by 2026. Our programme of development reflects Scotland's housing needs and demand, delivering around 70% of homes for social rent and 30% for mid-market rent and affordable homes for sale through new supply shared equity. We continue to deliver 10% of the entire programme to exemplar space standards for people with a range of disabilities. In our commercial business, Managing Homes describes a range of private sector initiatives which includes managing the Scottish Government's shared equity schemes, commercial letting, private rented sector homes and delivering factoring services to owners. Having enjoyed a continued period of successful tendering, Link is now the sole administrator for all the Scottish Government shared equity products, and last year a £3.3 million profit was achieved from these transactions alone. Some might argue that the schemes were too successful, spending all of the funding too quickly, and the increased take-up reflects this. But we're proud to have helped more than 10,500 individuals and families into their own home. Importantly, despite the Scottish Government's policy to reduce their shared equity schemes on offer, Link has retained the management of OMSE and the transactional administration of all after-sales for any existing shared equity owner. Factoring, which services more than 3,500 owners, achieved a 9,500 profit and reduced arrears by £16,000. And while these gains were marginal, this was despite the challenges of operating during the pandemic. Improvements in IT systems and processes will be key to continuing these positive trends in the future, especially with the doubling of customers with the addition of the former Weslow Factor service. Link's private sector offer continues to grow, both through the successful implementation of the new PSL contract with Edinburgh Council, but also with an expanding mid-market rent portfolio. Despite the challenges, Link's private sector leasing made significant gains in the first year of the newly awarded 10-year contract. Profits of more than £1 million were recorded, which was helped by £188,000 worth of reduction in arrears and an increase in property numbers, generating new income, along with a streamlined structure to deliver an enhanced customer-focused service. Our development programme produced 348 additional mid-market rent homes during the pandemic, which created its own challenges, requiring the team to digitise new tenancy sign-ups, and work was also undertaken to prepare for the integration of Weslow's private rented portfolio. Link Property, Link's in-house maintenance contractor, faced unprecedented challenges throughout the year, and despite this maintained a high-quality service, repairing, improving and maintaining homes where government restrictions would allow. Emergency repairs were professionally maintained, new kitchens, bathrooms and window installations continued where allowed, ensuring as much of the improvements could be delivered as possible, while protecting tenants and keeping our operatives safe. 346 tenants received planned improvements in their homes, and resources were repositioned to deal with the growing backlog of routine repairs that couldn't be completed due to restrictions. We also started our in-house gas service and repairs team, who worked throughout the pandemic, keeping our tenants safe and ensuring gas compliance throughout the year. Building on our success, and in line with Link's strategic services review, a consolidation of all Link's commercial activities in one company has been approved by the Link Group Board. To make this happen, Link Property Limited has been renamed as Curb 6 Limited and will become a new commercial operating platform for developing, managing and maintaining homes for Link and beyond this group. The new branding signifies Curb's trading intentions as a sustainable business, aligning its aims to the green agenda, building net zero homes, investing in net zero maintenance solutions and managing our homes ethically. The name Curb denotes our commitment to reduce carbon throughout all our activities, with the C representing the periodic table reference for carbon and the use of the tilde, which is a mathematical expression indicating negation or inversion, in this case of carbon. A formal launch of Curb will take place in the new year. As a statement of intent, Curb's future branding has been designed and will soon become a recognisable business in its own right, while maintaining its values shared with Link Group and its partners.